Howdy everybody, David here, and this is another review for another Savage Worlds product, and this is the Horror Companion review. Now this book has been out for quite a few years already, or this PDF has been out, and this digital review is going to basically show you page by page what is it basically entailed and what belongs and what is inside of this Horror Companion. So we're going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about Savage Worlds, which Savage Worlds is a generic system, sort of like a GURPS, but it is very rule light, it is very fast and furious, and it is very deadly too. It's a great system, and Savage Worlds has really come to grow on me within for the last 3 to 4 months that I've been playing it. So I've pretty much picked up all of the companions now. Now that I'm starting to broaden my horizons and do more stuff besides just pure fantasy, you know, the Horror Companion is a great addition to add to your arsenal for fantasy. You can do, you know, you can do Vampire the Masquerade with this. You can do, you know, vampires versus werewolves. You could even go as much to add this Horror Companion into your fantasy game, because just of the sheer amount of information. This book is almost 150 pages, and it comes in a small softback form, much like the Fantasy Companion review that I had done just a few days earlier. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at this. So as you guys can see, it pretty much follows the same format, different style though, a little bit more blood and gore in this. But as you guys can see here, same format as the Fantasy Companion and Sci-Fi Companion. More races, more hindrances, more edges. There are all kinds of new equipment for your, you know, horror type of fantasy game. There are all kinds of additional rules. There's new spells, which are called powers, but in the Horror Companion they call them magics. There's all kinds of one-use items, permanent items, all kinds of cool, you know, things that you can add to your game, magical stakes and whatnot. There is a very massive index of creatures in here. I think there's almost 80 pages, to be exact, of monsters. And a lot of these are your traditional types of fantasy monsters, but with these new horror twists, which, like I was, you know, talking about just a few moments ago, this would be a great addition for a fantasy game also. And vice versa, for the Fantasy Companion being a great addition to any kind of horror game that you are going to play. I mean, these companion books are a home run by Pinnacle. I mean, they've done such a good job to add such distinct information for that genre of that book. They've done such a good job, and I can't stress that enough, and the Horror Companion is no different. There's also a very extensive game mastery section, probably about 20 to 30 pages, and that pretty much wraps up the end of the book. So we're going to go ahead and start taking a look. So as you guys can see here in the first section, here's all of the new hindrances, which, you know, if you take edges with your character, you get hindrances, which is a great mechanic of Savage Worlds. So everything good that you get also comes with some bad. That's just starting your character. And, you know, you can inherit hindrances also. I've had players have arms taken off in a zombie apocalypse game. They would gain the one-arm hindrance, or if an eye gets knocked out, or a leg gets chopped off. So you can also inherit hindrances. Here's some new edges, and all of these edges and hindrances are on top of the core deluxe rulebook that you would also use basically in cohesion with this book. Now, there are several new Children of the Night, they're called, and you can see the art. This is another thing about the Horror Companion. This is what really stood out too, was the very dark and gloomy art, and I really like that. I love art. That's pretty much the first thing I do as I'm flipping through like a new book that I get or a new PDF. I always look at the art first, and then it kind of sets the tone for me when I go back and I start reading. So here's several of the new races. You could choose angels, demons, patchwork men, phantoms, and there's all kinds of, you know, lust rules in here. Good stuff. Vampire, werewolves. You can actually play zombies. New tools of the trade. You can see it goes into a very extensive type of ammunition. Silver bullets, nitrate bullets, ultraviolet bullets, stuff for those werewolves, those vampires. And that's what I really like. What is not in the core book, which goes, perfect hand in hand, these two books together. Here's all kinds of new mundane gear, and like I was saying, you could use this with fantasy because it has very extensive rules and descriptions on what holy water does to the undead. And the fantasy rules doesn't have that, so you could just carry this over into your fantasy game, and your players would love it. So here's all kinds of new setting rules. It talks about buckets of blood, make sure there's blood everywhere. I mean, it's a horror game. You know what I mean? That's exactly what they want you to do. Sanity. If we all know that Cthulhu, makes your characters over time go mad. Well, in the horror companion, it does a lot more than what's in the core book, in the core deluxe book, on sanity, losing your sanity. You can even go. It has the rules into gaining it back. And then here's a pretty nice sample of losing and gaining back sanity also. And here's a nice psychosis table also. Now here's just a bunch of lore on the horror zombie, the horror genre, all kinds of rituals, putting rituals into your game. What if the rituals fail? All kinds of signs and portents, and fortune tellers, all kinds of examples, binds and wards. So basically, this is exactly what you want for your horror game. I mean, it goes into detail with everything. Now here's your magic. We all know that magic is actually, translated to powers, which is called powers in the core book, and we all know powers as spells. Your more traditional game like D&D or Pathfinder, we know them as spells. Pathfinder calls them powers. Well, the horror companion, they call them magic. And each Savage World setting may call it something different, but it has the same requirements depending on what level of character you have, whether a novice or a veteran. And it has the same types of trappings, so it's just the same thing. It's just that they call them magic. And there's actually there are more new powers or magic in the horror companion than there was in the fantasy companion. So, and like I said, ladies and gents, you can take these these magics from horror, and why not put them in your into your fantasy game too, and just expand your Savage Worlds fantasy arsenal. I mean, that's what I'm going to do when I start a pure Savage Worlds fantasy game. It's going to be fantasy. I'm going to use the core book, the fantasy companion, and the horror companion. Those will be the 3 books that I use, and then I'll create my own world from there. I'm actually really looking forward to doing that. So here's all kinds of arcane items, different types of bandages, mask, what you can do with dust, creating a laboratory, grave dust, grimoires, all kinds of mirrors, marks, weapons, moonblades, puzzle boxes, sacrificial knives, staves. I mean, it just goes on and on. There's pages of this stuff. And you guys can see that there's a lot of full page art spreads. And I really like that. I really do. Now here's the start of the bestiary, or as they call it in the horror companion. This is the creature section. And it has a lot of demons. And here's all the demons, and you can see with the skull represented by the name, that means that monster would be pretty much a wild card, which a wild card character in Savage Worlds gets an extra D6 bonus like the NPCs do on every single roll. And you can see there's all kinds of giant bat, black coachman. I mean, this is really extensive. Like I said, this is the largest section of the book, which is really nice. It has everything from cultists. I mean, you could use these cultists in fantasy and vice versa. I mean, this is just very nice. And you can see that these creatures, these creatures, they're not selling them short. I mean, they're adding a lot of different things to these creatures. Take for instance this gladiator here. I mean, it is a pretty tough gladiator with a 14 toughness, stats from D12, the minimum of a D6, and there's a D12 plus 3, and this is not even a wild card. Man, this is it's got Berserk, Blades, does Strength plus D10. That's these creatures would fare well in any game. I like it. Seducers, Spine Devils, all kinds of different dogs, Dreamweavers, even an Evil Clown. Holy cow. What horror companion wouldn't be? It's complete. We have the Evil Clown. All kinds of ghosts, ghouls, golems, undead, goblins. Quite an interesting take on their golem, on their goblin. And as you can see, I mean, Hellhounds, Hoarfrost Warriors, Homunculuses. I mean, there's just imps, everything. I mean, it's just packed full. Mummies. And the one thing that I did notice is the nice, very nice piece of art there. The one thing that I did notice that there is a very extended vampire here, and it is much better than the core book vampire and the fantasy companion. So this is the vampire I would probably use in a fantasy game. I mean, there's literally 4 or 5 pages on this one vampire of all the skills and whatnot. So I do like this. I'd probably use this instead. Here's all kinds of were creatures, perfect for fantasy game. Zombie lords. Here's the game mastering section. It basically just tries to how to incorporate your horror, if you want to put a splash of sci-fi or fantasy, or to have it dark and gritty, maybe even do something historical with the area that you're from. And it talks about all that good stuff, locations, plot points, gives you a ton of ideas on backgrounds for an adventure, plot points, planning forward to have a continuing game. And it's really nice. I truly I think the Horror Companion is a great addition. You could pick it up both on the Pinnacle website. I believe the PDF is about $10. The softback is about $15 in your game store, or you could go on eBay or Amazon, or you could go to Drive-Thru RPG and pick it up there as well. So there you go, everybody. This is the review of the Horror Companion by Pinnacle Savage Worlds. I think it's a great addition. Like I said, guys and gals, if you mainly play fantasy, I would really consider picking this up. It is a good game. I know most players usually play fantasy. The major majority of tabletop players prefer fantasy. Don't let the Horror Companion name scare you. It's great. It would be good for fantasy. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy it. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, I'm David, and I'll see you later.